One of my worries that for teenage boys now, they are so terrified of the consequences of putting a foot out of line. It's hard enough being a young teenager, working out how things are, working out how to do dating and all of that, without the terror that if you touch in the wrong place at the wrong time, you may find that your whole life is destroyed.
I
and there
like
is
that
far
terror.
too much. Well,
I like that.
As a mother of a teenage boy, I don't like
Really?
that
That's
terror.
the most malicious thing I've ever heard.
That is awful.
I think that men should be frightened
I think
to
you'd
touch
feel
women in a way
differently
that
if you
they're
were,
not comfortable with.
But we're talking about
Yeah, but we're not talking about. We're not
children.
talking about.
We're talking
but
about
it's an
young
interesting
children.
thing that you see. I would say that attitude actually is part of the problem too. That is that's to me toxic femininity.
It is.
That is saying you should all be terrified, you men, if you put one.
Of assaulting.
Well. I think we all understand what sexual assault is. What Isabel's talking about is that young teenage clumsiness
really
in many
hard.
cases, which is now being recategorised as assault. Is that a problem?
It's not being recategorised as assault. It's always been assault. It's just we're finally talking about it.
I don't agree with that.
That's ridiculous.
Teenage boy fumbling with teenage girl is not in most cases assault, is it?
Do you remember Aziz Ansari, right? Hot off the heels of Metoo, hot off the heels of Harvey Weinstein rightly being dragged through the courts, and it should have got way worse than just prison time, in my opinion. Aziz Ansari had a consensual relationship with a woman. She felt a bit awkward, and afterwards rescinded consent, and he was lumped in, and he had his career.
No, I'm with you on that one.
Cancelled.
I'm with
so
you.
then why should men be afraid of that?
Because he didn't touch her without consent, did he?
No, but she rescinded his consent, and
how are
she
young
saw
boys
that
supposed to
then
navigate
as a
this, the whole
Yeah, I
thing?
agree.
I'm thinking
you
of
need to
my
have-
teenage son. You know, he's 14, 15. What's he supposed to say? Would you mind if I put
Isabel,
my
you are an
hand-
extremely
come
strong
on,
woman. I
come
know
on.
in your house you're teaching them the difference between assault and then coming on to someone.
But
I know you are.
But what we're talking about is it's been very interesting watching the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, how it's all developed, because a lot of very bad people, Harvey Weinstein and others, got their due comeuppance. We can all agree with that.
Yeah.
This is not even something to be debated. We're really talking about the grey line, right? Where is that grey line?
Yeah.
How do you navigate it? When you're an experienced adult and you've been around the block in many ways, you can navigate that much more intelligently and with emotional intelligence than you can if you're a teenage boy. And I think the point Isabel makes is a good one. I've had 3 sons in their 20s. I've always taught them to be respectful to women, and I believe they are. But I do think it's really hard for a 16, 17-year-old boy now in this environment to know even how to start
they are all
having some
terrified.
kind of physical relationship with a woman.
Those good boys are all terrified. I know that from talking to my son. He's just like, I'm just not going there. Is that healthy?
Yes, I think it is, actually. I think it's better to not have a physical relationship than to have one that could ruin a woman's life.
But then how do they ever start?
Well, don't. If you're not 100%
Don't.
sure,
What are we going
don't.
for?
What are you going to have? A bunch of neutered
Celebrate.
boys who
But
never
it's
had...
so obvious.
We actually
It's
do
sort
have
of
that.
like-
Gen Z is having far less sexual relationships
Yes,
than any
they are.
before.
It's true.
And
young
hang
people
on.
have stopped having sex.
I agree with the first part of your sentence, actually. If you're not willing to have a sexual relationship with clearly defined lines, don't have one. And so I actually told my mates at university, don't sleep around with girls. 1, girls don't bring a guy home that you don't know what he's capable of. 2, guys, don't bring a girl home if you think that possibly she could have a false accusation against you.
Can I make another point here?
Which I find, I mean, look, that sentence to me, when I was your age, right? How old are you?
23.
23. When I was your age, the idea you would even have that sort of thought process.
Yeah, I
would
wouldn't
be
have those sort of
unthinkable.
mates that would ever cross the line, so I wouldn't have to have that conversation with any of my friends.
Don't throw my mates in with a bunch of violent people.
And is there a certain purity here I'm detecting in a certain type of feminist who thinks that they're all unimpeachable and that this is all one-way traffic and that only men can be toxic?
No, I
Because
don't
I've got to
think
enlighten you. I've met quite a few women in my life who are pretty toxic themselves, and I don't see the debate being framed around that at all.
No,